participants registered, so I'd like to go ahead and open up the meeting. I'm Pam Scannell, CEO of the Palm Desert Area Chamber of Commerce, and thank you all for joining us this morning. We will be recording this meeting, and just going through a little bit of housekeeping. If you could put your phones on silent and turn off your microphone until you are able to speak. And if you have questions or comments, please use the chat box in the middle of the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it now, move your mouse down to the area and it will appear. I would like to introduce to you this morning our chairman of the board, John Sloan. Good morning, John.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I appreciate all of you showing up here this morning, especially our city council. I'd like to first ask Marv Law if he would open us up with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marv. All right, we have first and foremost our board of directors. We've got Marv Law, we have Mel Mason, and who else do we have here? Do I have anybody's hands? I think that's it. Oh boy.
Eric Morcus.
What's that?
Eric Morcus.
Where's Eric? I don't see him.
He's on the
bottom.
He's on page 2. Hold on. All right. So welcome for our board of directors. And then also we have our City of Palm Desert. We have Kathleen Kelly, Sabby Jonathan, Jan Harnick, and who else? We have, Karina Quintanola. This is the first time you've joined us, I think, right, Karina? So welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And then Gina Nastandi. Did I miss anybody? And then, of course, we have our illustrious city liaison, Deborah Glickman. Good morning, Deborah. All right, Kathleen Kelly, our mayor. What do you have for us today?
Well, I'll kick us off with two pieces of news and a pep talk. I think everyone is aware now that the new city manager has been named Todd Heilman. He comes to us with an extremely impressive list of accomplishments in his prior post and lots of enthusiasm for the great city of Palm Desert, which all of you helped to make great. So he starts March 1st, and you can look forward to engaging with him. The Desert Sun did a nice piece about him, which is still available on their website. So that's a great place to click if you want to know more. Lupine Plaza Outdoor Dining is back open for business with added safeguards. And so to check that out. I want to say a word about, this is the pep talk part, about where we are with the virus, because that was the topic of some back and forth chat here before we got started. Yes, of course, we're all eager to get back together. We're eager for this breakfast to be a Desert Willow where we have real bacon, not virtual bacon. But we've got to keep our senses. We've all had the experience of starting out with a new exercise routine. If we do it for 1 week and we feel way better, that doesn't mean we're supposed to stop, right? it means we're supposed to stick with it. And right now, it is so vitally important that we stick with our best practices of masking, perhaps double masking in the face of these variants, which are more contagious, social distancing, and being sensible about maintaining virtual connection for the time being. Because yes, our metrics are all going in the right direction, and we want to keep it that way. And for context, we have to stay mindful that while they're going in the right direction, they're still substantially higher than they were at the time these safeguards were put in place. So hang in there, team. Let's hope we're at least in the third quarter, if not the fourth quarter, but it will take a while for the vaccine to roll out, of course. Let me feature among our opportunities for good, safe outdoor recreation, our own living desert. You may have seen the ads about the new Australian offering. The living desert has had superb safeguards throughout this pandemic, so much so that it enabled us to designate them a safe outdoor recreational opportunity, even during the stay-at-home order. So if you're not an annual member, think about picking up that annual membership as a great way to support a distinctive part of our hospitality appeal and entitle yourself to get over there early each morning for a tremendously pleasant hiking experience. So let me turn it over to Deborah for more good news.
Good morning, everyone. I actually saw a nice feature on the Living Desert on Spectrum News, the LA news yesterday. So it's being featured all around. We're excited, even out of the area, that it's open, which is great news. Yes, I have some more good news. Following up on the discussion of masks, the city has been gifted a large quantity of PPE that we have distributed a good amount of, but there are still free face masks, face shields, and hand sanitizers available to Palm Desert businesses. If you are interested in receiving free PPE, please contact me. I will put my contact information in the chat box. I am doing deliveries, as well as some of our city council is doing deliveries, so we will get you to PPE however we need to. So please let me know. Like I said, I'll put my contact information in the chat box. We'll be happy to get that to you. On another good note, we have some store openings. This is one of my favorite things to report during these meetings. On El Paseo, there is the Chuck Jones Gallery, which is a pop-up gallery at the Gardens. And then there is another gallery open on the west end of El Paseo, the Peter, and I'm gonna mess up the last name, but it's Jessel Gallery. And so those are both open now. Westfield has some new offerings. It has Thirsty Cactus, which is a place where you can stop and get some agua fresca, some ice cream, and this is my favorite, some liquid nitrogen balls. So kind of the liquid nitrogen ice cream, which is always good. They have a Thai restaurant that is opening in February. And Westfield is also launching what they're calling the Local Love Campaign. And that starts this month. And it starts with an open air market that was, we missed it. It was over the weekend, but they'll be doing more events in their parking lot. And all of it is to encourage people, the same thing the chamber's doing, the city's doing, shop local, shop often, shop local. And I'll post a link to that event in the chat box. Another exciting opening that's coming actually in April is the La Quinta Brewery. Not only is it a new fun brewery, but we've stolen it from La Quinta. So that is up in the North Sphere near the DMV. They will be opening soon. That will be their tap room and a production. So I believe they've moved most, if not all, of their production to Palm Desert, which is exciting. We have a new event starting, a new outdoor market starting on Sundays. It'll be starting February 28th, and it is an open air farmers market that is going to be brought to us by CD Harvest Box. CD Harvest Box is a local harvest box that started during the pandemic, and it's a home delivery, but they are now working with the local farmers to create a farmers market for us. And that will be the last Sunday of each month on San Pablo. So we're looking forward to that. This year, there will be a wildflower festival. It will just be virtual. So there'll be a month-long celebration of the valley's wildflowers. And I'll send you a link to the Friends of the Desert Mountains, which will have more details on the activities going on around that. And then just a couple more updates. I've talked a little long today, sorry. Palm Desert is a home to a COVID testing site. The city of Palm Desert partnered with UCR Palm Desert as well as Curative to open a testing site at the UCR Palm Desert campus. Testing is still very important. I know there's a big focus on vaccine, but at the same time, the testing is very important to keep our numbers up so that we can keep our businesses open. I've been through the UCR Palm Desert campus. I've just made it sort of a regular part of my routine about once a week to stop by. Super easy, very quick, and gotten my results in about 36 hours. So I highly suggest if you're going to get tested, that's a great location to go to. Even if you're not signed up, you can just sign up there. It's very quick. And then Westfield Mall continues to have their testing site, which is the Curative Palm Desert site is a free testing location. The Westfield is a pay-to-play location, but they'll also do rapid testing. So as always, your city is here for you. I'm here to help you with any business needs that you have, any navigation of the city, or just any questions that you may have, and I will leave my contact information in the chat box. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Anybody have any questions for Deb? A lot of great information, Deb. Exciting. It's interesting. You have 2 new galleries opening up. That's very, very unusual at a time like this. But, you know, I guess people have money to spend, right?
It's always a good sign to see the arts opening up.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Now I'd like to introduce Karen J. Sloat she is with the law firm of Karen J. Sloat. She is the owner of Karen J. Sloat, and we're happy to have her here with us. She's always got great information, and she's really updated us over time, not just with our chamber, but with other chambers as well. Karen, welcome this morning, and we look forward to what you have to say.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, John. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So I'm going to do a quick transition to a PowerPoint, but I want to give you a little introduction. Pam asked me to speak on some very specific COVID issues. We're all kind of tired of talking about COVID, but as Kathleen mentioned, it's very, very important still. And the government has new regulations. So today won't be a fun, cheerleading kind of talk from me. It's going to be very specific, a little bit tedious, but I'm going to provide you with a lot of very important information. You will want the PowerPoint afterwards. I'm happy to provide it. Pam has it as well. It's very technical information, but it's critical for every single business in the Valley. Even if you don't own a business, would you please pass it on? Because this is very, it's very timely because the government is enforcing these laws right now. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Yay, Pam. Okay. All right. So the COVID-19 prevention program, you might not have heard of that specific title, but it is now required by the government. Let's go through the requirements so that everyone knows what they are. That's me. All right, the COVID prevention program in 2020, in November 2020, the Department of Industrial Relations, that's the labor code, the labor arm of the government, held hearings and then established new regulations. They were effective November 30. They were approved within 10 days. There was some publicity, but many employers don't know about them. They apply to all employers with one employee. That's just about every single employer you can imagine in California. And this COVID prevention plan, I'm going to call it a CPP, must be part of every business's injury illness prevention program. You may say, we have one, we've always had an IIPP. You may say, I've never heard of that before. The labor code requires that every employer have some kind of illness and injury prevention program, but many specific types of trades like construction and hazardous waste disposal have always had them. Many small employers don't know about them, but you need to have an IIPP, and then this CPP must be part of your injury illness prevention program. We have heard that compliance officers are already driving around. This is why this is so important today. They are driving around to businesses, they're walking in the front door and they're saying, show me your COVID prevention program. We want to see the binder, we want to see proof of training and auditing and compliance. And for January, they were not fining employers. However, the notice came out from the governor in January that by February, citations and fines will be issued if employers don't have this plan in place. So I'm going to show you everything you need to do to get that plan in place. The CPP is designed to, of course, prevent further COVID-19 exposure. It's also addressing the workplace, the specific workplace reporting requirements, and what must be done to audit and train your employees. The company must choose one person to have authority over the CPP. All managers and supervisors need to be trained. They are responsible for implementing all of these specific guidelines. You'll be a little overwhelmed by the pages and pages of guidelines, but again, we're going to get this to you, and you can tell your supervisors how to implement these guidelines in every single workspace. The program has to be presented in a language that the employees understand. If they are Filipino, if they speak only Spanish, if they speak only Arabic, then you'll need to get the plan into their language. All employees must follow these procedures. You can make it mandatory because it is obviously mandatory by the government. Here's an introduction and definitions. The company must provide effective training in the plan, and that means you must train all of your employees. Here are the elements of training. You have to have written COVID-19 policies and procedures. Some of you have posters on the wall, some of you have masks at the front desk. Those are great. These specific procedures must be in place, and again, in this pamphlet, in this binder that you need to provide. You need to provide information to all of your employees about COVID-19 benefits. I'll be going through those, but that includes sick leave and other leaves that the government might pay for, and non-paid, unpaid leave. You need to notify your employees that COVID-19 is an infectious disease, how it's transmitted, that it may have no symptoms, and then the physical distancing. They're not calling it social distancing anymore. As of November 30, it's called physical distancing. And then they're combining it with the wearing of face coverings. It's not 6 feet apart or the face coverings. This regulation requires the face coverings and 6 feet apart. You must train on the fact that, that the virus can spread more than 6 feet, that there's an importance of hand washing with soap. We'll be going over that a little bit in detail. I know adults know how to wash their hands. As you know, we've had specific instructions about 20 seconds, sing a song, and do whatever you need to do to get those hands washed. You need a sink and hand washing facility on your premises. That may be very difficult for some of you. I just need you to know that that is required and needs to be nearby. Proper use of face coverings, we'll be talking about that. And if you need respiratory equipment or special masks because of the hazardous wastes in your workplace or other conditions, that's special PPE we'll be talking about. Of course, you need to train your employees on the symptoms and testing availability and anything else that you put together for part of your program. I'm going to put in, as you see at the bottom of this slide, looks form. We have some forms that are developed by my office that deal with some of these things. If it says looks form, that means we have one that's available to you. You can email us and we'll send you particular forms as I refer to them. So the risk of exposure needs to be trained. Obviously the employees need to know what are the symptoms. Are they exhibiting symptoms? Are there co-employees or other workers in the premises, independent contractors or vendors? Are they exhibiting symptoms? Employees need to be notified about anti-discrimination. There's some protections in place for persons who are more likely to get COVID. There are certain groups within our cultures, our multicultural society, that are more susceptible to COVID, and there needs to be an anti-discrimination policy, which we've written here, and that tells people don't discriminate against people who may be more susceptible. Of course, there's an increased risk of severe illness, and you need to advise your employees about that. So Pam asked me to speak on what's required and then what happens if an employee has COVID. I don't know, Pam, if you want to take questions in between or if I should continue my spiel, but I want to give Pam the option.
Yes, I think if we take questions in the sections that you're doing, just to sort of help people keep their thoughts in their mind. Also, everyone, please use the chat box to pose any questions as you think of them, and we can bring them up at the end of each section. So at this point, does anyone have any questions on what has been covered so far? Hearing none, Karen, thank you. If you would please proceed.
I will, thank you. All right, the big question, what if an employee has COVID? Or what if, the other question was, what if they've been exposed to COVID? Do you quarantine? Do you require the testing? Do you have to pay for the testing? Do they have to get a rapid test? Do you have to report that to other employees or the government or your workers' comp carrier? I'm going to give you all the answers. There's a reporting form. It's another form we've provided, but the government requires reporting. The workers' comp carrier requires reporting. So here's what we do. If an employee has a potential exposure, or you have a potential exposure in the workplace because one employee caught COVID, you need to advise your employees that testing is offered at the employer's expense. It's no cost to the employee, and they can go during working hours. That's a new regulation. And I know that's a little scary if you think about testing 50 employees at $150 per rapid test. My understanding is that the cost has gone down, that there are these testing centers. Deborah mentioned one of those in the intro, and two of them actually, and you need to pay for that test if it's contracted in the workplace. You also need to provide the company's benefits. I'm not going to go into those in great detail. I'm hopeful that you have ready your paid sick leave according to California law, other paid leave if possible, and then we'll be talking very briefly about other family leave under California and federal law that's required that you provide. If someone is exposed, they need to quarantine for 14 days. That's pretty obvious. Now, the tricky requirement that is in this new regulation is that you must keep paying the employees. And some employers are saying, wait a minute, the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, expired December 31st. It did. There are some government paid leave plans in addition to your regular California paid sick leave that all employers must provide. There are other benefits. Maybe you have some disability benefits that may apply. That's a more technical question I'm not covering today, but the government asks that you keep paying the employees. Here's the benefit. The FFCRA benefits to the employer have been extended. So if you decide I'm still going to pay employees for up to 10 work days, as the FFCRA had provided, you can still get the tax credit if you turn in your paperwork before April 1 of this year. So if you have to pay employees for some time off, you can still get that tax credit under the FFCRA. Obtain the test. Again, they're recommending that you still quarantine 10 days after any symptoms. So if an employee has symptoms, they say, I'm fine, I got a negative test, they still say quarantine for 10 more days. So here's the big, if I had fanfare, I'd start it now. Please pay attention to this reporting requirement. It's not pleasant, but it's absolutely required. Within 1 business day of the discovery of a COVID case in your workplace, and this is of any employee, you must notify all employees, notify a union if a union is involved. You must notify the employees not only that the case has occurred, but that benefits are available. You must notify of all your cleaning and disinfecting plans that you will put into place before resuming work, and notify Cal OSHA and the Department of Public Health locally and the state Department of Public Health with 1 case. That means you'll need a notice form. We have one in our law office, but you can certainly look on the regulations and prepare your own notice form, but that's the rule within 1 business day. This is according to Assembly Bill 685, by the way. If you have 3 or more lab confirmed cases of COVID in different households within a 2-week period, which has happened to some of the employers locally, even if they're staying at home, even if they're quarantined, even if they weren't in your workplace when they caught the COVID, that is quote unquote an outbreak. Just 3 cases. It was 4 before when the governor issued an employer playbook. So you must report that to OSHA. OSHA and the Public Health Department and the other reporting requirements that I'll be discussing. OSHA has the opportunity to shut down your operations in your workplace for an outbreak. I don't think it will in every case, but they may come in and assess the hazards. They don't have to give a required 15-day notice, which is under their regulations. That's been excused, so they can shut you down immediately. Workers' compensation. Every employer must have workers' compensation for every employee in California. That's under the labor code. I'm not making it up. Senate Bill 1159 held that workers' compensation carriers must be notified of anyone who contracts COVID within 3 days. So here's what we need to do. The governor issued an order back in, I believe it was May. That order was made into law by this SB 1159 that there's a presumption your workers' comp coverage covers a COVID case. That means medical treatment, wage loss, etc., and all benefits. And the employer and the workers' comp carrier have the burden of proving that the COVID was not injury related in the workplace. In other words, the employer has the obligation to prove that the person caught the COVID at Uncle Joe's barbecue or when they were out of state visiting their son in Kansas. And if the employer doesn't prove that, then there is coverage under your workers' comp policy. You can see that the dates extend all the way to January 2023, and you must submit a claim. It'll either be rejected or accepted within 30 to 45 days, and probably workers' comp will cover it unless you get some quick evidence to them. So again, report every case of COVID to your workers' comp administrator within 3 business days. There is a form on which you will provide that information. You do not provide the name of the employee. Again, this is private health insurance information, right? So it's covered by HIPAA. You don't provide the name, you provide the date, as you can see, the date that the test occurred, the address of the employee's places of employment during the 14-day period, the number of employees who may be exposed, and then the workers' comp carrier is notified about that case and can take action. You must report to the local health department and comply with any requests. It's the same form. It's a form we have at our office again, but it provides no employee name, just the fact that a COVID case occurred in your workplace. You must report immediately to OSHA. That's the Occupational Safety Health Administration. And you need to report a COVID case or, of course, any death. And then maintain the records of the COVID cases in your binder, that is your CPP binder, and maintain the fact that you sent off those notices properly. When you investigate the COVID cases, keep a record and track all of your investigation. It may be required by a public health department or OSHA. All right, should I stop? Looks like there might be more questions. Are there any questions, Pam?
Just unmute myself here. There was a question on what is the difference between an employer telling you they have COVID or whether they say they've just encountered someone with COVID? What are your
Okay,
obligations?
good question. So if someone says they have been exposed, like they have a roommate or a nephew or whatever who exposed them, they must quarantine for 14 days. That is not a case, a COVID-19 case as it's defined in the regulations that must be reported. If an employee comes to you and says, I have symptoms, I have a runny nose and I've lost my taste of smell, that's again not a case yet. Those are symptoms. That person should be sent for testing immediately. So if you have a positive test that indicates that COVID has occurred, that's what the law defines as a specimen. The positive test says a COVID case has occurred, and then you have the reporting requirements.
One of the questions we also have is what if an employee is sick and they think they have COVID, but their tests are negative?
Okay, that comes up all the time too. And the tests, unfortunately, are not 100% accurate. So the recommendation is that that person stay home at least another 10 to 14 days, even with a negative test. I know you need them back at work, and that's not the desired effect, but that is the recommendation. That is not necessarily a requirement of the government.
And when your employee gets tested, do you have to keep them away until a negative result is given?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they need to be off work. Maybe they can work remotely, but they do need to be off work.
Okay. Just a little footnote that the COVID clinic at Westfield does come to your place of business to do rapid testing if that's required.
That's wonderful.
Those are the only questions at this time.
Thank you, Pam. All right, when they can return to work, we've just covered a couple of those instances. COVID-19 cases, again, that's COVID-19 cases tested positive with symptoms cannot return until at least 24 hours have passed since their fever has resolved without the use of fever reducing medications. COVID symptoms have improved, and again, at least 10 days have passed since the symptoms first appeared. If they never developed symptoms, they still must not return to work for at least 10 days until they got, 10 days after a positive COVID test. And a negative COVID test cannot be required for an employee to return to work. Now, this is a weird one. Employers have been requiring anyone with symptoms to go get a test, mostly at the employee's expense, and you can't come back to work until you have a negative test. That's not the law. The employee can refuse to get the test, but they still have to stay out, the 10 to 14 days, depending on their situation. You cannot ask an employee for the results of a test. If the employee says, I got tested, I'm coming back to work. Unfortunately, the law does not say, I need to see that receipt and the proof of the negative test, unless the employer pays for the test. If the employer pays for the test, the employer has a right to see the result. If there are multiple COVID cases, then you have a potential outbreak. And again, that's the CPP restrictions on staying open and operations will apply for the 14-day period if you have an outbreak. Again, that depends on what the public health department says. They may have additional restrictions for your workplace. Major outbreaks are 20 or more COVID cases. In large employers, we have seen some of these. If you have 20 cases within a 30-day period, that's a major outbreak. That does mean you need to shut down operations. Certainly, OSHA will get involved at that point. And I regret saying this, but there will be postings on OSHA's website of locations where these outbreaks have occurred, the specific business and the workplace locations. It's difficult for employers to hear that, but OSHA has the right to post that information. All right, remote workers. If you have people who work exclusively remotely and they do not come into the office or the warehouse at all, then they are not required to comply with all of these CPP restrictions. In other words, they don't have to wear the mask all the time when they're at home. They don't have to go to the trainings and all of that. They are not covered by the CPP. You should have a remote work policy that covers their remote work for a number of reasons, wage and hour reasons, their compliance, reporting to their supervisor, confidential information they have in their home internet floating around, et cetera. This is beyond my PowerPoint today, but remote workers are a fine idea and they just need to be regulated. If someone refuses to return to work and they have no COVID, they have met the 10 or 14 days, they've got negative tests or whatever their situation is, and you say you need to return to work and they don't, that's the end of their employment. Employers have asked for me for the last year, can we terminate somebody? They refuse to return. Yes, you can. If you have a safe environment, you've complied with the CPP, you've given them all the time off that they need, and they're just scared, I'm sorry, but you need to get back to work. You may need to accommodate, of course, any physical disability. You may want to consider remote work for that person, but that's completely up to the employer. All right, there are the other company obligations. I think I'm doing okay on time. This is what you need to do in the workplace. You need, as part of the CPP, you need to conduct an evaluation. That is an audit of all the spaces where your employees work and evaluate them for COVID hazards. So you need to review the applicable orders, figure out what the hazards might be, figure out what the regulations are, and then evaluate what prevention controls do you have. Do you need to open more doors? Do you need to have more air circulation? Do you need to have more PPE, et cetera? You need to conduct the periodic inspections, and then of course, keep a record of them in your notebook. We have forms about that as well. And then employees are encouraged to identify spaces that are risky or where there might be hazardous waste or anything that could expose folks to unsafe conditions. Then the employer has an obligation to correct them, of course. You need to document the issues on an inspections form. That means we found an area that's enclosed where there are, more germs because of our medical procedures in our office or our, practice, and therefore we need to do something in that area. You write that down on the inspections form and you correct the hazards. You need to describe to the employees what actions will be taken to handle these hazards and the individuals who will undertake the remedies. So let's talk about face coverings. The face coverings rules in the CPP regulations are different. The employer must provide those face coverings. They don't have to be the N95. Of course, we can't obtain the true N95s in this country, as I understand it, for regular offices. But you need to provide face coverings that match the regulations. And if you have visitors, contractors, vendors coming onto the premises, you need to provide the face coverings for those persons as well to ensure that your workplace is safe. You need to describe to the employees as you do this training on the CPP, where are the face coverings? How would they be replaced? If the employee wants to get their own face covering, can they get reimbursed? My recommendation is yes, that the employer can have a policy of up to $5 we will pay for you to get your own face covering, some kind of cloth covering. There are exceptions to when you have to wear a face covering, which is a little bit of a bright light in these regulations. If an employee is alone in a room, they don't have to wear a face covering with themselves. If they're eating and drinking, again, as long as they're 6 feet apart, they don't have to have the face covering on. If they are wearing respiratory protection anyway, obviously no face covering. And if they can't because of a medical condition or they're hearing impaired, et cetera, then alternatives should be considered. If an employee cannot perform their job tasks with a face covering on, that is an exception. Just be careful because all employees are going to want to say, I can't do all my tasks without a face covering. So they can get away with not using it probably. Physical distancing is the 6 feet. You have to describe in your workplace how you're going to handle that. That may require, depending on your workspaces, arrows in the hallways to direct people in one direction, so they're not within 6 feet of each other for any duration of time. That's up to the employer to work these things out and to record how have we ensured that people will be 6 feet apart. All right, coughing and sneezing, hand hygiene. There are specific regulations that discuss how to cough and sneeze and wash your hands. So I'll go through these very quickly, but you need to, again, evaluate your hand washing facilities. Do you have the sink and the soap and the paper towels handy so the person has access? Do you have a need for additional facilities? Do you need to provide notice? Do you need to provide hand sanitizer for those who can't reach a sink? This is important on the top half of the slide. Every employee is encouraged to wash their hands for 20 seconds each time, and a separate bill that was passed as of January 1 requires that at least in food facilities, all facilities that involve food, the employer must provide a hand washing break every 30 minutes or more often as required, and that's in addition to meal and rest periods. This CPP regulation requires that hand washing as often as possible, at least every 30 minutes. The PPE depends on your company. If your company doesn't need, if your company employees don't need specific types of gloves to handle certain kinds of potentially infectious surfaces, then you may not need gloves. If you need goggles because you're dealing consistently with patients or people in close proximity, then you may need to provide the goggles for all of your employees. I don't have a list here of the PPE because it does depend on you and your workplace, and you need to evaluate that. Look at respiratory protection, look at eye protection, and then come up with a plan that you tell your employees about. All right, cleaning and disinfecting is rather, I would say, obvious, but the regulations require specific measures and that you record them. So make sure you have adequate supplies for disinfectant solutions, hard to find these days, and you have to inform the employees of how to disinfect and clean their workspaces and how often. Some workspaces where infectious disease could come frequently, for example, a front desk where clients are coming in or visitors are coming in, talking and putting their hands on the desk, that may need to be cleaned much more often than a back room where no one is working. So again, that's just the company needs to provide these procedures, and especially during the high risk period. And if possible, provide for an outside service like a janitorial service that will employ these procedures as well. Engineering controls, if you need to adjust your workplaces with a ventilation system, screening and that kind of thing. Of course, that's beyond my expertise, but the company needs to evaluate whether more severe measures to protect the employees must be taken. Okay, shared tools and equipment. If the employees share tools, there's a greater risk of infectious disease, and therefore there must be more sanitizing and disinfecting. It's encouraged that no employees share a headset or even a monitor, a keyboard, or other surfaces with other employees during this time, and the employer must figure out how to do that. In my office, we bought extra computers. Everyone has their own so that we don't have anyone using each other's computers. And sharing of vehicles, if for some reason you have a business, for example, I'm going to use a plumbing business or a pool business where different people get in the trucks on different shifts, then you need to make sure those areas are sanitized especially, and you have to come up with a plan, a written plan for how those areas are going to be sanitized when people share vehicles. The goal is to have two-way communication. The employees need to be comfortable to report their symptoms and any conditions, and you need to make sure that the employees feel free to speak about these issues according to the regulations. Also tell them that you'll accommodate their medical needs, etc. When testing is not required, you have to describe how to get testing, If you require testing because of your workplace, again, if you're dealing with patients every day or people in close proximity, you have to talk about the consequences of a positive test and what will happen. You'll have to report it to the government, et cetera, and then identify hazards. All right. So one other thing I wanted to discuss is people are asking us a lot, can I require employees to get the vaccine? The basic answer is yes. The government hasn't been completely dictatorial about that, but our opinion, based upon all of our research, is yes, the employer can require the vaccine of employees with two conditions. If the employee has a medical condition, a physical disability, or some other, again, medical reason that they cannot get the vaccine, then they are allowed to say no and provide a doctor's note that will excuse them from getting the vaccine, period. You don't ask questions. You take the doctor's note and say they don't have to get it. The second condition is religious. If they have a religious reason for an exemption from governmental requirements for vaccines, they can present that to you. And then that is an excuse, if you will, or a reason that you cannot enforce the vaccine on that employee. I want to mention before I take more questions that you are welcome to go to the regulations on the DIR website. It's dir.ca.gov. You can look at the regulations in my PowerPoint and prepare your own CPP. You can, I'm sure there are services that are providing them. There's even some samples online on the DIR website to do it yourself. I'm not soliciting business. I do have to show you our binder. What we're doing for our clients is putting together a binder with the table of contents, with all the portions in it, with all the forms, and lists for compliance and training and auditing. And the reason I do that is because it's hard for employers to take the time to gather the plan, put it in writing, and administer it to the employees. So on the last slide I showed you, we also have a video training on the plan that you can just get from us and show to your employees instead of taking the hours to learn how to train them specifically. But that's totally up to you. So I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Karen. We do have a couple of questions, sort of tracking backwards a little bit. What if an employee is sick, they think they have COVID, but they've tested negative?
If they are sick and they think they have COVID, again, the tests are not 100% certain. I've heard of people losing their sense of taste.
Karen, you went mute. There you go. Thank you. We missed your answer.
Okay, I'll try again. Thank you. If the tests are not 100% certain, I have heard of people losing their sense of taste or smell and still testing negative. So in that case, the safest route is to have that person stay home at least the 10 days or even the 14 days, but 10 days after the symptoms were first contracted. That's the rule.
Okay. The next question that came up, can you require that an employee has a monthly COVID test as a preventative action using the state or county rule testing facilities?
You may be able to, depending on your workplace. Here's what I would say. If you determine that because of close contact with visitors or third parties, that the employee needs to get the testing for your operations, and again, come up with a business reason for justifying that. And if you're willing to pay for the testing, then yes, you can require it as part of your CPP. And again, you're going to record it in your binder that you've determined that was a business need.
And if you're an organization that utilizes a lot of volunteers, what is your obligation to the volunteers? Do you have to provide them with face masks and treat them like employees, that sort of thing?
That is a great question. According to the governor's guidelines, they were called guidelines back in March and April, that volunteers are supposed to be not how would I say it? They aren't employees. They aren't governed by these regulations. But the recommendation is, yes, provide all PPE necessary, maybe not just face coverings, but other PPE to all volunteers who are working. if you don't have it, again, they may have to be turned away. If they don't have their own PPE, then they can show up and volunteer for an event and have to be sent home, which would be very discouraging.
So in the case of testing, et cetera, do you have the same obligations with your volunteers in regards to reporting and temperature checking, et cetera?
Thank you. So I didn't proceed with that. You don't have a requirement under these regulations. There's no government requirement that you report or keep the record of the volunteers' cases. However, if they're within your workspace, there's an argument that even though they're not employees, this should be reported to the local public health department because you have had a case of an employee, I'm sorry, of a volunteer within your workspace. As far as the testing requirements, you don't really have the right to test a member of the public. In other words, you don't have the right to require them to be tested, but you can establish that any volunteers who don't have the tests can't show up at, for example, an event where they're going to be in close proximity with other people. You can have rules for volunteers, and the guidelines do provide that they still have to be the physical distancing and have the face coverings every time. Did that answer the question?
That was it. And does anyone else have any other questions for Karen? Gosh, that was such a lot of information to digest, and thank you for providing the PowerPoint for me to share to the attendees. Really great and valuable information. Okay, I'm not actually seeing any other questions popping up. Karen, if you would stop your screen share, we'll have a look
Absolutely.
at the gallery, see if anybody's got their hand up.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if good morning, Karen. I don't
Hi,
know.
Anna.
Hi. I don't know if you answered this already, but does an employee have to have proof that they actually have COVID? Do they have to have paperwork showing that they have it?
No, that's a great question. They don't. If they have symptoms and they tell you, I have COVID, I have symptoms, they get the time off. And I will take this moment to announce, if you didn't hear it before, that as of January 1, the California Family Rights Act, the CFRA, now applies to all employers with 5 employees or more. And that means that they have to provide up to 12 weeks of leave, unpaid leave, to any employee who has symptoms or any other medical condition. There are lots of covered circumstances under that act. But yes, if they say they have COVID symptoms and they need time off, you need to provide it and hold their job open.
This is Joy Diffendahl. I'm a sole proprietor doing everything out of my home. I don't have anybody coming to my home. I don't have employees or anything. So do I need the CPP?
No, you don't have one employee. Congratulations. You are free.
I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Oh, Karen, I've got a question for you. So I am in a brokerage office that has employees, and I also have my own employee in a separate office. I can use the book that or whatever that they have put together for my employee as well, correct?
You certainly can. You certainly can. Yep. And keep in mind, this is not just employees. Again, any workers on site need to be notified. So if you have contractors coming in and out, they need to abide by your rules and also abide by the reporting requirements.
Well, Karen, you always provide great information. That was 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. So that's why we need people like you. I don't have time to read up on this stuff. And I don't think many people do. I mean, we have our regular jobs and this is your job. So thank you for doing your job. That's great.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm going to introduce the head of head of our ambassador group. I'm sorry, Kathy Rappaport. Kathy, I see you there. You've got some nice greenery behind you.
That greenery is in Inverness, Scotland.
There you go.
So I was there last year and it was before COVID, just beautiful. So I am the ambassador chair for the Palm Desert Chamber, and I want to let all of you know that we have opportunities to meet our members, to be involved, to not be a sole person off in your own little world, but to be part of our community. And we need volunteers. It's a great way to meet people virtually and get to know people. I like to encourage you, if you are a chamber member and you have an employee, you'd like them to participate. We need ambassadors. We're the face of the chamber in the community. And I am your chair. I would love if you would reach out to me if you have interest. We, until we're actually back in person, we are doing some things virtually, and we would love to be able to have community among us. So you can reach me through Pam at the Chamber or Kathy at flashfrozenphotography.com, and we welcome your involvement. We have a team of about 20 ambassadors, and we reach out to members of the Chamber as well as the community, and we welcome your involvement. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, back to Pam. She's going to update us on what's going on with the chamber.
Okay, thank you, John. And there's a lot of things happening right now. Now, this week is a busy week, especially on Thursday. We have our Profit Connection lunch, and our guest speakers are Mel Mason, the clutter expert, and Lisa Napolitano from the Small Business Development Center. So if you'd like to get some updates on that, please tune in, register for the luncheon. Starts at 11:30. And then also on the 11th, we have the City Council meeting, of course, at 4 p.m. If you're interested in hearing what's going on, please tune into that. It's a lot of information that passes through those doors. So please stay tuned. And if you're not up for a city council meeting, maybe you'd like to join us at our first mixer of the year, a virtual nonprofit mixer, 4:30 p.m. It's on our calendar at pdacc.org. Everybody is welcome. It is a free event. There's going to be action-packed giveaways and all sorts. So please come and join us if you can, and go to our website to register so that you can get that Zoom link. But it should be a lot of fun. We are accompanied by Crystal Granados and Stephanie Minor from the RAP Foundation. And so they've put together a great program for us. It's only an hour long, just a little snippet of time. So please come and join us for that. We're also working with the Restaurant Association. We're putting together the Palm Desert Restaurant Association. We're making calls to different entities. If you'd like to help us make those calls, please let me know. We're trying to reach out and get the connection between City Council, the Chamber, and the restaurants. Let's get the information flowing, the ideas, the thoughts, the issues. We want to really bring a spotlight to that. We also are still working with our e-gift card program. It's coming along nicely. If you haven't signed up to participate in the program or you haven't purchased a card yet, please visit our website. We've got a button for each of those possibilities. The Chamber's also been gifted a grant from the city to help businesses with PPE. And we have a lot of that here at the Chamber. So please shoot me an email, make an appointment so that we can get those supplies to you if needed. And then also, if you'd like to draw some extra attention to your business, the city has also given us a grant to provide banners, open for business, 3 foot tall, 10 foot wide. Get your spotlight now. We've got the banners at the Chamber. You need to be a Palm Desert business and just give us your business license number, and we will give you one of those banners so that we can get some great attention to you. So those are just some of the updates right now. John, so I don't know if maybe you'd like us to go around the room now.
Yeah, that'd be good. First, I would like to ask any of the folks that are on the city council, do you have anything that you'd like to bring forth with the folks here? Anybody want to raise their hand? Okay. Yep, well, let's quickly go around the room and just,
That one's not mine. Okay.
my daughter just came to visit, so our dogs decided to go crazy.
Oh, bless.
Like Deb Glickman's cat, it just purrs.
Yeah.
All right,
John, do you want to take people around the room or would you like me to do that?
go ahead and do that, Pam.
Okay, thank you.
So what I would just suggest is name and business. You're muted, Pam.
Okay, calling on Richard.
Good morning, Richard LaFerrier with Edward Jones Financial Services.
And Joy.
Good morning, everyone. Joy Diffendahl, 12-year Optavia health coach, helping people get back in healthy balance.
Thank you. Karina.
Muted.
Karina, we missed your introduction. Could you please unmute?
Sure thing. Introduction, I'm happy to be here. It's my first time visiting. And as newly elected council member, I'm excited to get the opportunity to meet with all of you at different times when safe or virtual. But it's just lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Rappaport.
Hi, I'm Kathy Rappaport, and my business is Flash Rosen Photography. I do portrait and event photography and commercial photography.
Jessica Munoz.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Munoz, and I'm with Voices for Children, the court-appointed special advocate or CASA program for Riverside County.
Thank you. Gina May Nestande.
Good morning, everybody. Gina May Nestande on the Palm Desert City Council. Very supportive of our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Kathleen Kelly.
Good morning again. Always good to be with you.
Anna Frost.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Frost. I'm with Spectrum Charter Media. We do 30-second programming, streaming, and online services.
Thank you. Dr. Betty Baxter. Betty, can you please unmute?
And clearly not a technician. I'm a life coach and a grief recovery specialist. And I would I would welcome everyone and invite you to participate in our St. Margaret's Episcopal Church drive-in church services every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. It's a unique opportunity to worship and to be safe.
Thank you. Natalie Angrasani. Please unmute.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Natalie Angrasani. I'm the current chapter president for the Trendsetter chapter of the American Business Women's Association. And it's a great day in Palm Desert.
Thank you. Savvy Jonathan.
Oh, hey, everyone. Good morning. Savvy Jonathan, Palm Desert City Council. And these days, I'm also reminded of my other day job, Jonathan and Associates Certified Public Accountants. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Savvy. Marv Law.
Good morning, everyone. Marv Law, Health Bridge Insurance Solutions, and we're a bridge to Medicare and healthcare in retirement.
Thank you. Debbie Fraser.
Good morning. Debbie Fraser with Mary Kay Cosmetics, as well as serving as the COO for the law office of the best attorney in the desert, Karen Sloat.
Thank you. And Deborah Glickman.
Good morning again. Deborah Glickman, City of Palm Desert Business Advocate.
And Jan Harnick.
Good morning, Jan Harnick, working for you, Palm Desert City Council.
Thank you. And I don't have a name on this attendee. I have initials NM.
Good morning, everyone. I'm wearing two hats. My name is Pat Riley. I serve on the board of Alzheimer's Coachella Valley, And I also am a care manager and community liaison with Home Care Assistance of Palm Desert. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And Mel Mason.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mel Mason, the clutter expert, founder of Decluttering Spaces, and now the host of the Mel Mason Show that will be in 190 countries.
Yay. Congratulations. And Mike.
Mike Phipps Russell with Loving All Animals. Glad to be here. Thank you, Karen, for making this presentation. And thank you to the Chamber.
Thank you. And Karen Sloat.
Sure, I'm Karen Sloat with the Law Office of Karen Sloat. Nice to meet you all.
And I have someone identified as Steve.
That would be me. My name is Steve Vatter. I apologize for the difficulties with the video this morning, but I'm joined. The name of my business is Valley Pipeline. We're out of La Quinta, and I joined this morning to hear all the wonderful information that Karen put forth for COVID and employers, employees. So I thank you guys for that. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Have I missed anyone, please? Erica Abarca.
Hi, good morning. I'm Erica Abarca, and I work with Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And Darlene.
Yes, hello. Darlene Fletcher with St. Margaret's Episcopal Church. Thank you for the wonderful information.
Thank you. I think we have covered the room, John.
Eric.
Eric Morcus.
I'm gonna try and unmute this. Good morning, everybody. It's time for a little R&R, restaurants and real estate. I'm a realtor by day, restaurateur by night, kind of like the Jekyll and Hyde lately in business. So, hey, you know what? Life gives you lemons. You either make lemonade or a lemon drop. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Karen, for your information. My head is spinning. So thanks to the city for all their help they're providing to everybody. And God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Eric. And again, thank you everyone for attending this morning. I will be distributing the PowerPoint to every attendee this morning. And if there's anyone else that you know that needs this information, please point them our way. This session has been recorded and we may be able to share that recording. We'll launch it up on our YouTube and see if people would like to tune into that. So
remind everybody, as Eric was said, any day is a great day to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. So, and this is a great time if you're selling a property, trust me.
That's for sure. Everything's going through the roof.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Anna Frost?
Yeah, I wanted to do a quick shout out for Voices for Children. Jessica's on the call, but they have a information night tonight virtually, I believe, right, Jessica? It's virtual. Yeah, at 6 p.m. It's for anybody who's considered being a CASA. At least take a look at it. It's a great volunteer opportunity to be a CASA for a foster child. So you can reach out to Jessica and get the information.
That's great. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. And we hope to see you on Thursday at one of the events that are going on. So thank you again for joining us.
Great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.